Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Good morning. It is morning. It's 10:15, Wednesday, the 13th of September. It will go out on the same day, but I'm just briefing you guys to let you know what day and time it is. Welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, the Raw Reload. I am your host, Adam Cousins. Andy is back in the country, but he's jet lagged. He had a bit of a to-do getting home, but he still manages to fly about 10,000 miles and still get to watch his Dunstable team play out a boring 1-1 draw. So well done, Andy. You're jet lagged as hell. We've got it covered today. And that means if I haven't got Andy, who do I normally have with me? The problem child, Mr. Dave Robinson. Good morning, mate.
Good morning.
It's Wednesday, and you know what that means.
It's Dynamite tonight, but we're not here to talk Dynamite. We're here to talk Monday Night Raw. And I thought that I've had a bit of a break from WWE for a few weeks, and I say I tend to Raw, to be honest.
Yeah,
I watch all the big shows, and sometimes I just lose interest in the weekly stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought Raw was great this week. Really, really good. And like I just said to you off air, I really need to start, and I think wrestling fans need to stop comparing AEW and WWE because it is a different type of wrestling product. It's not really at times a comparison. No. AEW draw on the independent style, New Japan, and WWE is just its own animal, and it's always had its own way of doing things. So I think really it's an apples and oranges comparison at times, trying to kind of compare Raw and Dynamite. Yes, it's a wrestling show, but I think there's a different kind of a different appeal, really. And yes, I think at times WWE offer a more family-friendly product at times. But the most important thing to me is that I'm entertained. And if I'm going to commit 2 or 3 hours to something, I don't want to come off the back of it thinking that it was boring or lackluster, or that I wish I would have been doing something else with my time. And I can honestly say last night, I started watching yesterday morning and I got held up with something at work related. But last night I watched the remaining 2.5 hours of it in one go, and that for me isn't something that happens very often. So I'm really, really pumped and excited to talk about this week's episode of Raw with you, mate.
Good. It's another week that I didn't fast forward anything in 3 hours, which is always a good sign when you don't go fast forward. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The last Monday Night Raw, we mentioned this on the podcast when we were doing SmackDown yesterday, the last Monday Night Raw. So the last WWE show under full control of Vince McMahon. They did ring the bell in the New York Stock Exchange yesterday of the company that's been formed, TKO, UFC and WWE together under one umbrella with Endeavor. So the future Endeavor thing going forward will be quite fun. Well, we don't want to hear about future endeavors. That's not a fun thing to talk about. But anyway, let's get in. Raw come out. Jey Uso, my God, is that guy over? Yeah, literally.
I loved all this business.
This.
I was doing that myself, I think.
The crowd as well. That reminded me of Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan when he was doing the when he started that coming up. He's got the crowd pumped. Anyway, he comes out, he's great to be here. Doesn't want to be away. He's happy to be away from the family. That brings out Kevin Owens. So a lot of the Raw roster are not happy. So he's here, and they've got a bone to pick with him and Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was the man that brought Jey Uso to Raw, and obviously Jey Uso being a part of the bloodline basically had an issue with nearly everybody at one point because he took him out, he either super kicked him or he was helping Roman along the way. And that's pretty much what Kevin Owens said, that he's been where you've been, like he's been where Jey Uso has been. And it took him ages to get people to trust him. And they were starting to get an understanding a little bit. And then the Judgment Day come out. And they started planting the seeds about having Jey Uso as part of the bloodline. A bloodline will always welcome you with open arms.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day, yes. Sorry, the bloodline. Blimey. I'm getting there's too many factions in wrestling nowadays.
Yeah.
They start, and it's too early in the morning. And they started to say, the Judgment Day welcome with open arms. And it essentially led to a tag match. Jey Uso did super kick. I think it was Dominic.
It was it was a sweet. Yeah. It's a sweet super kick as well. It's really nice.
It was a good super kick. That kicked off the tag match, which was a really, really good start. Nice hot way to start Raw. You've had the crowd into it because Jey Uso anyway had come out and done it. Their bit. They did mention McGriddle as well, Riddle and McIntyre in the promo. But anyway, the fun match, really fun tag team match. All I would say was that I was kind of waiting for the mishap to happen between Jey Uso and Kevin, which it did. Jey Uso inadvertently super kicked Kevin Owens. That cost Kevin Owens the match. The Judgment Day win. They play up on it. Kevin Owens gets angry about it. But Dave, it was still a really good hot way to start Raw.
Yeah, a great start. And mate, just you'll have to forgive me. And I know most people watching this are going to be annoyed with me. But why did Cody have the power to bring Jey to Raw? How was that explained?
He come out, he was on the Payback. He was on the Grayson Waller effect. Michael Cole kind of said a point, and it was a little bit detrimental. He said, "Oh, Cody used to be an EVP, but he gets things done around here," which was a slight. It wasn't this week; it was another week. But basically, Cody said, "I've got a bit of stroke. My last bit of stroke that I've got, I'm using to bring back someone to bring someone to Raw, and that someone is Jey Uso." That's basically that's the story about it. I'm not sure where it's going with Cody, and that maybe that it's into a match, maybe that thought, because he basically within that they then said that SmackDown get a trade compensation, which I'm assuming eventually will end up being Cody, and that's how they get round to him and Roman again.
Yeah,
that's basically the nuts and bolts. Just Cody saying, "I had a little bit of stroke left, and I've used it to bring Jey Uso to Raw."
Got ya. Well, however he's got there, it's a great acquisition for Raw. And Jey is a bona fide star on his own merit. And I think the past few years and the character work and the development they've done, he's really paying off now. And he's become a marquee name, and you only have to look at that reaction. And I'm sure his merchandise is flying out as well. So they've got to be really pleased with Jey Uso. And his ring work has never been in doubt. He's always been a great in-ring performer. But he's always been associated with being a tag team wrestler, on the whole. Obviously, he's had his solo runs when Jimmy's been out, and he's done some great stuff with Roman Reigns, really captivating stuff. But now he looks like he's going to be a permanent, with what's happened with the Usos, it looks like he's going to be a permanent single star, and that's absolutely great for the WWE. Over the years, they've been criticised for not making stars at times or developing stars, and you just look at Jey Uso, and that's a great example of what the WWE machine can do when they get behind somebody. In terms of this match, great hot start to the match. I'm glad the Judgment Day picked up the win. I hate when the new champs, when a team become champion and they go on a bit of a losing streak, but it's non-title or whatever, with no real meaning or justification for those losses.
Yeah.
So it was a right thing, Finn and Damien going over. And obviously we had a little bit of dissension between the two, which, as you say, may have been slightly obvious. But it was also quite a logical thing to do. And it sows those seed of doubts that people have about Jey Uso when it comes to the Raw locker room.
Yeah, exactly that. It is definitely, it's definitely about that and how that goes forward with Jey. So I'm really looking forward to.
He's got to prove himself, hasn't he? And that's basically what the roster are kind of demanding from him, individually or as a collective. It's quite an interesting way of introducing him to the locker room. I think that's rather than just ignore everything that's happened previously, which is at times that's what WWE have done historically. They're not doing that. They're saying you've done some pretty heinous things. You've been involved with the bloodline. You've crossed so many people and cost so many people matches, and that's really benefited Roman and his title run. So now if we're going to take you seriously and we're going to trust you, then you've got to prove yourself.
Exactly that, and we'll see how that develops. There's a bit more to the story later on, so we'll get to that. They had a little 9/11 package, which was nice. They had a bit of a backstage thing with McIntyre and Xavier Woods setting up the match for later on at Raw. McIntyre, I think, is starting the heel turn.
Yeah,
I think you kind of see that now. So that will be however long it takes. I've got a feeling he's going to turn. I've got a feeling it will happen on Cody. Is my bet.
It may well have been Riddle. That might have been the original plan, but obviously with Riddle's
issues.
Yeah, he may not be appearing for a few weeks at the least. But I think that was perhaps the plan there. But Drew turning heel was always the overall plan, I think.
Yeah.
And as you say, they're sowing those seeds pretty well.
They are indeed, and as I say, probably on Cody would be my bet, but we'll all see what happens in the weeks go by. The next match, there was no real understanding as to why the Miz took on Axel Tozawa. Obviously, this is probably a tune-up for LA Knight this week on SmackDown. The Miz picks up the win. There was really nothing more to it than that.
Tozawa beat him the other week, didn't he?
He did.
So it was kind of like Miz to get his win back, and
yeah. That really much was it on that match. Let's not really dwell on that too much. They had a bit of a backstage thing with Raquel Rodriguez saying about, her main event with Rhea Ripley, which will be interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. It was nice to see the women main event Raw, actually, but we'll touch on that in a minute. Shayna Baszler was also backstage. She was interrupted by Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green's partner, Piper Niven's, now medically cleared, so they're still the women's tag team champions. That brought us to Gunther, and he's championship celebration. He's now the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, eclipsing the Honky Tonk Man's record. He was just having his celebration. It was interrupted by our good buddy Chad Gable, basically come out saying he doesn't know when, he doesn't know how, but he's getting the title rematch, and then his family will be there, and his daughters will not cry this time. And Gunther basically calls him a bad father. Proceeds to be attacked. Otis comes out, and there is a setup for later on for a 6-man involving Imperium and Tommaso Ciampa and Alpha Academy. I want to see Gunther and Gable, but I personally want an Iron Man match. But I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I absolutely love the presentation of Imperium. Yeah. I think Ludwig Kaiser is phenomenal. Everything that he does, every movement, every facial expression, I just think it brings so much to the overall presentation of Imperium. And I think he's a bit of an unsung hero. Although I've noticed a lot of people are kind of pointing out, he's rolling it. I think he's great. But in terms of Gunther and Gable, we'd definitely be getting that third match. It's one apiece, really, isn't it? Because Gable picked up the count-out victory, was it? Did they have a match prior to that as well?
Yeah, I think Gunther won the first one. Gable did win that one, and then...
Yeah, so there's actually already been 3 matches, because I think Gable had to survive 5 minutes, didn't they?
Yeah, he done that.
In that first one.
Yeah.
But they're kind of classing the trilogy is the one where Gable picked up the count-out victory and then Gunther won the last one last week. But yeah, I think we'll definitely get a stipulation, an Iron Man match, or a 2 out of 3 falls match, or even a submission match. Something like that could be really, an entertaining way to finish that feud. And it's just then whether they go with Gable with the title, or whether Gunther retains. You'd think by the time WrestleMania rolls round, Gunther may be in the world title picture. So it's whether he's still holding the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship at that time, or whether he's dropped it. Be a little bit of a shame in some respects for him to break the record and then lose it immediately. I don't know if he would lose any credibility as such. But yeah, perhaps it'd be a little bit early for them to kind of. So I know that sounds strange because he's had such a long run. But you kind of get the feeling that if you're going to beat a record, you don't want to do it by a day or a week. You want to kind of put your own stamp on that new record.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It'd be great. I'd be happy either way, to be honest. I'd be happy for Gunther to continue this momentous reign. And you've really got to. I know we're going to discuss the top 10 Intercontinental Champions of all time. And Gunther really staked the claim to be number 1, to be honest. And that's not just recency bias. The way he's elevated that title and really made it feel prestigious again has been awesome to watch. In saying that, if Gable picked up that victory and finally that first singles title in WWE, we'd be very happy on this show about that as well. So they can't really lose in this situation for me.
No, they can't. I would imagine. I'm not. Well, I am a betting man, but I don't win, so I'm not going to say. But I would say Gunther maybe drops it Survivor Series. Yeah. Maybe the Royal Rumble. The last 2 again are him and Cody, but he picks up the win this time instead of Cody.
Yeah.
Goes on to face Seth. Cody wins the Chamber, perhaps, and then gets Roman that way. And Gunther gets whoever the champion is, because obviously Priest is still holding senior Money in the Bank contract. So that's my betting. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't make sense for Gunther to lose it a week or two after he's broke the record. It depends how long they want him to hold it for.
I'd rather him beat Gable in that third match.
Yeah.
But then at some point in the next month or two, we've got a four-way for the IC title, and Gable's back in contention in that. And Gunther doesn't actually get pinned to lose the title. I think that would be a better way. That's the way I'd do it, I think.
Yeah, I think sort of maybe losing it one-on-one could lose a bit of credibility in a triple threat or a four-way. He doesn't have to be.
It's just not particularly believable, is it? The way he's ran through opponent after opponent, the Drews, the Sheamuses, every challenge that's come his way, he's dispatched. So for him to lose a one-on-one match against Gable now, as impressive as Gable is, and as good as a wrestler that he is, I think the right thing by Gunther long term would be for not actually be pinned to the mat to lose that title. Yeah. So we can always say that he never actually lost it. I think that would be better for his character and the way they've presented him thus far.
Yeah, I think it would work better. We'll see what they do with Gunther as the weeks go on. McIntyre Woods next. No surprises here. McIntyre picks up the win. The more interesting part, the match was actually a really decent match to be fair.
It was a good match, yeah. It
was a good match. Xavier Woods is probably underrated, I think, as a single. It's difficult. We can say that about so many people and about titles they could win.
Former King of the Ring, isn't he? So obviously at times they have really recognised Xavier's talents and putting him in these one-on-one matches. I think we should get a few more of them, to be honest. We still enjoy the New Day. They're still a really over team. But I think seeing Xavier do what he can, seeing what he can do in singles action, we want more of that on Monday Night Raw.
We certainly do. It was good back and forth, really good one-on-one match. McIntyre picks up the win. He's then seen walking backstage. He bumps into everyone's favourite wrestler at the minute, Jey Uso. He said that he doesn't trust Jey. Jey said he's fine with it. McIntyre says you can't stand on your own 2 feet. Jey tells him to pull up next week, and that match is ready for next week now. Jey Uso, McIntyre. That really does have, a kind of, you would expect that kind of match on a pay-per-view. You could see it on a pay-per-view. So that should be a really good match next week on Raw. I'm looking forward to that. What do you make of this whole Jey McIntyre? It's going to be good though, isn't it?
I love it. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a teaser next week. I don't think we're going to get a full match as such. It'd be great if we do, but as you say, that's a pay-per-view level match in its own right. So
yeah,
you don't want to give too much away on free television. When you've got the network subscriptions and people checking out the pay-per-views, that match could definitely be one of the marquee matches. It's going to be interesting which way they go. Obviously, you don't expect Jey to lose. You don't expect Drew to lose. So one of them's got to lose, something's got to come to a head. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go. Will they double down on the Drew heel turn next week? Possibly. Will anybody else come out and who perhaps the Judgment Day are involved?
Yeah.
Because obviously, even after they had a match, Finn was talking with Jey backstage, and he kind of said, "No hard feelings, still respect you, still love to have you in the Judgment Day." So there's a lot of things bubbling over, and I liked how Jey Uso was kind of laced throughout the show. He didn't just appear and then you forget about him. No. You had all this, the trials and tribulations and him bumping into different superstars throughout the episode. And you had the Judgment Day appearing frequently as well. And I really liked that. It wasn't too much. Every time they appeared, I was like, oh, not more Jey Uso, not more Judgment Day. I thought it was expertly placed, and they didn't really put a foot wrong this week.
No, it was a good segment, and you still guessing because you saw Jey Uso kind of looking around as well, didn't you? When was he either looking for the Judgment Day to attack him, or was he looking to see if Kevin Owens was around or McIntyre? You don't know
who was going to attack him.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
He had a lot of enemies over the past few years.
He certainly has. Cody, funnily enough, was next. Said, Norfolk, Virginia, what do you want to talk about? Let's talk about Jey Uso. He was interrupted by Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough. Cody pretty much clears the ring of these two. I don't really want another Cody Dominic match. We had that Money in the Bank. It's done. Cody decisively picked up the win. JD McDonough is kind of another one trying to feel his way into Judgment Day. One of the quick ones, just quickly before, when you were talking about Finn and Jey Uso talking, and he was going, yeah, Dominic likes you, Priest likes you, and he went, and then Rhea likes you, and Jey Uso goes, for real? It's just quite funny how serious conversation. But Cody coming. It's not really doing much at the moment. Is Cody? There is getting a lot of talk online. He's getting lost. He's getting lost in the shuffle. Is it just a case of playing the waiting game with Cody until we get to, well, pretty much near enough right around the corner now, when we get to like the Rumbles and the WrestleManias?
He's really strangely positioned for me in the WWE at the minute. He's he's the champion who isn't the champion. For me, he's appearing. He looks like a champion. He feels like a champion. I'm not going to keep harping on about WrestleMania for the rest of the year, I promise. But I just think, him walking out there with the WWE title would have been, looked perfectly normal, and that's what we probably should be having. In saying that, he didn't really say anything this week. He didn't have the opportunity to, because he was interrupted. And I thought maybe he might appear later on in the show and announce or tell us whatever it was that was on his mind. Maybe we'll get that next week. I thought JD McDonough's bumping was sensational. I thought it was really, really good. And I really do hope that he is part of the Judgment Day officially at some point. Obviously they're teasing that, but for whatever reason they haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But I'd like to think that he I doubt Jey Uso will join. I couldn't see that, but I definitely think JD McDonough has earned his place on weekly television on Monday Night Raw, and to be part of that group with Finn Balor is a great fit for him.
Also got the same initials.
Yes.
JD.
Yes. Yeah.
JD joins JD. I think so. I think he will eventually, for sure. It's just a matter of how and when. The next match was the Shayna Baszler, Chelsea Green. Chelsea was with Piper Niven. Shayna Baszler, quite a quick one. This Shayna picks up the fall. Zoe Stark has to come out due to the fact that they were attacking Shayna at the end. She comes out and super kicks Piper Niven. Nice to see Shayna with a bit more of an oomph about her. As you say, you always wanted to see the Shayna Baszler of NXT days, and I think they're gradually moving that along. I'm still not sure if she's a heel or a face. I know Chelsea Green's a heel. But I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I definitely think she's leaning more towards a badass face who's not going to kind of suck up to the fans or anything like that, but is going to let her actions speak for her, and people are getting behind that. In saying that, Zoe was a heel with Trish, but yeah, they're definitely positioned her now, and the fact that they kind of had that show of respect and neither of them turned on each other, I thought that was great. And that was not to talk about AEW, but I was mentioned to you Jade Cargill's return, and a similar thing with Chris Statlander, and I kind of wanted them to stand tall together and
he did
a story like that, and that looks like exactly what they're doing with Shayna Baszler and Zoe. They may end up having another match, or, facing each other, but for the time being, it looks like they're going to have some kind of uneasy partnership or some mutual respect going on, which I think that's great, and that's the more intriguing thing to do over the course of a few weeks, rather than just do the instant heel turn or the instant swerve. Yeah,
exactly. I totally agree. They did have a match. Shayna won the first match. They had a show of respect at the end of it, and then this is kind of the follow-on. So perhaps a tag team run may be coming for those two initially, and then you're right, one of them will eventually.
And maybe that's really because the Shayna and Ronda split, it was very abrupt. It kind of came out of nowhere, but that was because of Ronda's commitments away from WWE, so they had to kind of force it through. So maybe they pick up where Shayna and Ronda left off and use Zoe Stark in that Ronda role.
Probably, I think so. She's just Zoe Stark is a hard hitter as well, so it makes perfect sense to do. Rollins was out next with a promo saying about how he's a workhorse, how he wants Nakamura again. Obviously, this feud isn't over. Nakamura was beating up Ricochet in the back. I don't get, and this is not nothing against him because I love Ricochet as a wrestler, but I don't get where he fits into this. There is no storyline thing that makes sense as to why he's in this. I know last week he was talking to Pierce. Nakamura, I think, come up and they had a bit of a to-do and they had a match and Nakamura won. but it makes no sense. I know it was Seth Rollins that was out with Pierce, and then Ricochet was there, and then Nakamura had a match with Rollins, and Ricochet beat him, and then this week he's beaten him up. So I don't know why Ricochet's involved in this, but essentially this is a carry-on of Nakamura and Rollins, which I don't mind seeing. I said this to Andy, and I'll probably say this to you now, because this is the first time I've had a Raw show with you since. This is the Nakamura I've wanted to see, but I now feel is too late because they've mishandled him so much over the years.
Yeah, I totally get your point, but I really did enjoy this, and I was watching it going, yes, this is what I've wanted to see for so long. Exactly as you say, this is the Nakamura of old. Yes. This is where the potential was and what they could have done with him. And I actually loved the Japanese promos with the subtitles. I thought that worked really well. And it's kind of like, why didn't they do that years ago?
Yeah.
But we can't kind of dwell on the past, and we can only really scrutinize what they're doing now, and what they're doing now with Nakamura is fantastic. And is he a legitimate threat to Seth's title? Is it somebody that could pick up that world title? I've gone from thinking to begin with, no, Seth will kind of beat him a couple of times, to actually now a little bit more 50-50. Particularly if they keep this kind of, if they stick with this and it's not like a short-term thing and they really invest in it, I really think we could get the best out of Shinsuke as in terms of character work as well as in ring work here. So I didn't really understand why Ricochet factored in, but I didn't watch Raw the week before. So, but if you say it was kind of not really too, so maybe that would be my only criticism, because you don't want to make Ricochet look like insignificant in all of this. Particularly after coming off a big match with Logan Paul. You really was hoping that Ricochet was going to the next level himself, so you don't want him to be like the sacrificial lamb.
No, you don't at all. And we seem to forget, though, we've still got Money in the Bank. The guy, Damian Priest, still hasn't cashed in.
Yeah.
So that could factor into the next match, which will probably be at Fastlane in a couple of weeks' time. I would have thought they will be. They could. I'm not saying he's going to cash in, but he's obviously got to cash in at some point. It's just when.
And I really do like that. The instant cash-ins sometimes can be great because they kind of catch you by surprise. But I really do like when they hold on to it for a while and you're just wondering when they're going to cash it, particularly when he's been booked quite strong as well since, tag team champion now, picked up another win alongside Finn on Raw. So it's not like he's picked up the title and he goes on a losing streak. So when it comes to cash in, it's less believable. He's been kept there and they've kept building him, and that suspense and that intrigue has been building. I really like that. So, I'm fascinated as to when he will actually pull the trigger and cash in.
Me too. Now, hopefully, well, who knows? It could be as soon as Fastlane in a couple of weeks. Could be Survivor Series. We'll find out soon, I'm sure. 6-man tag next. It was the Alpha Academy and Tommaso Ciampa versus Imperium. I think we knew this match was going to be good before it even started. It didn't disappoint. Really good 6-man. It was the Gable made a Vinci tap to the ankle lock, which, to be honest, it keeps him strong if they're going to go with that another match between Gunther and Gable. Gunther didn't take the pin or submission, which keeps him in that strong position as well. But a really good semi-main event 6-man.
Yeah, I love the visual at the end as well of Ciampa having Gunther locked into, is it the Sicilian
slice?
Yeah. So Gunther was there. He was desperately trying to get over. Also, Vinci, he's had an ankle injury, hasn't he? Which they've played on that for a while.
Yep.
So I just thought it was perfect booking. Vinci doesn't look particularly bad in defeat because he has that weakness, and Gunther doesn't lose. Gable picks up a win. Tommaso Ciampa looks great as well as part of this. I really thought this was a great 6-man tag, and I do love trios matches, to be honest, and I have done, whether that's independent wrestling, AEW or elsewhere, so to see this level of 6-man tag in WWE as well, it didn't feel like it was just thrown together for the sake of it. It looked like a really well put together match. And the story was fantastic, and it was all executed so well by the 6 performers. So, really, really big fan of this.
Yep, certainly was a great match. Very much enjoyed it. And they announced that next week on Raw, Nakamura will face Ricochet. Jey Uso's obviously got McIntyre. They did have a little quick NXT Women's Championship contract signing ahead of their match that was on NXT. I have seen it. I'm not spoiling it. If you want to find out if Becky Lynch becomes Grand Slam Bex, then I suggest you watch NXT because we don't review it. Too much wrestling on to review.
This was good though, a little contract signing backstage. You know, it doesn't always have to be, because whenever we hear contract signing, it's in the ring, table set.
You roll your eyes now.
You do, yeah. And there's been the occasional good one, you know, in recent times. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the sit down in the ring with a table contract signing. But I thought this little segment backstage was very good. And Tiffany Stratton, not seen a great deal of her. I have watched some episodes of NXT. I try and watch as much as I can. But I thought she really looked like a star, and she conducted herself well. She really hung like blow for blow with Becky in terms of verbiage. So yeah, I'll definitely be checking that match out. So thanks for not spoiling it.
That's all right. I've got in trouble in the past, so I will refrain just in case people haven't seen it yet. Obviously, it did air early this morning, so I have caught up with it this morning. Just after I caught up with NWA, because obviously reviewing that before Doug Williams tonight with the lovely Fiona Lochran, who will be joining us also with Doug Williams a bit later on tonight. So they had that match. They had that contract signing. Now, Halle, I'm going to swear. Halle fucking Luya. A women's match with a story. Sorry, Abigail. It was Abigail. He's right.
Yeah, I don't know if she watches.
Yeah, sorry about that. But
I'm not sure. Yeah, sorry.
But I had to for this reason. It was a women's match. It had a storyline. It was given time, and it had an ending which made you thought, "Hang on a minute, what now? What?"
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley against Raquel Rodriguez. Fantastic match. I had doubts about this match. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. It absolutely did. They gave it time. There was a story around it. And just when you think, because Dirty Dominic Mysterio is banned from ringside, so you were
good.
Thinking,
good. Yeah, that was the best part of it.
Yeah, so you were then thinking, well, what was you thinking? Maybe JD McDonough might come out, or maybe Damian Priest and Finn Balor would come out and help her win. No, it wasn't either of those. Funny enough, she did get help winning by the returning Nia Jax. However, that kind of partnership was very much short-lived, because the moment Rhea Ripley lifted that title up to win, Nia Jax headbutted her and proceeded to kick 7 bells out of her, and then done the Yokozuna bonsai splash on her, and then slapped her around the face about 6 times to end Raw. That is how you end a show, David.
Yeah. Absolutely love this. Like, I keep saying that, you know, but I did. I thought it was brilliant. And to end that not only with the great story and the great match. Oh, hang on. Phone's ringing. Sorry.
Whoops. We got the phone call. Dave's on.
It's just you disappeared.
Oh.
2 seconds, mate.
No worries.
I've lost my flow now. I've lost my screen. I've lost everything. Right, I'm back.
He's back.
Decline that call. Yeah, so I thought this was, you know, not just the story, the in-ring action, the fact that we got this big surprise return at the end as well.
Yeah.
When was the last time we saw Nia Jax? Was it a Rumble?
Yeah, it was a Royal Rumble. Apparently, she was the first signing that Vince McMahon made upon his return. She's been signed for a month or so, and they're just waiting. They're just waiting for the right time. Much like Carlito, who's been signed for ages and still hasn't quite come out yet. Much like the Authors of Pain that have been signed for about 6 months that haven't come back yet. But nevertheless, yes, Nia Jax, Vince McMahon signed about a month ago.
Yeah, and she's straight into the, you know, the main title picture, and she slots in there perfectly alongside Raquel Rodriguez, who was great in this match. Really, really one of her best performances, one of the best matches I've seen from her, and I haven't seen any bad ones, to be honest, but this was particularly good. Yeah, and Rhea, just as the women's world champion, we've talked about Gunther perhaps being the best, or being in the conversation for the best IC champs of all time. Rhea Ripley and her reign as women's champion. I know at times that she hasn't competed as much, but when she has, she's just stole the show, and it just shows that they were there. It was there on merit. It wasn't because it's the women, we need to give them a main event.
Yeah,
it was absolutely fitting of the story, fitting of the build. That this build has happened for a few months, and I know they had the match at Payback.
Yeah,
but this story started long before then. And then to get this featured match in the main event of Monday Night Raw, and we get the big return as well, which sets up, the intrigue. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next week when these three women are together at next week's Raw? Great television, cliffhanger, everything I could want from an episode of weekly wrestling television.
And amazingly enough, Dave, you hit the nail on the head of everything of that. But on the poll that we always tend to put out after every show, this got a mixed 50-50 response. Literally down the middle.
What, Raw did, or the Angle?
Raw. Oh, the Angle got shit on. Nobody wanted Nia Jax back.
What?
I don't know, mate. I think it's because she's hurt people in the past. She's been a bit. Look, it's not ballet, is it? Do you know what I mean? No, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes I'm glad that I haven't read the internet, and it doesn't influence anything that I say. I can just give my organic response to watching it, and as I say, I watched it last night, so it's fresh in my memory. I thought it was great. I don't know what people are. Yeah, maybe she's had some mishaps. Most wrestlers have had some mishaps. There was the big one with Becky Lynch, wasn't there?
That made Becky Lynch into the character that got her the most over.
Yeah, I think Nia's great. I really do. I think she's a believable.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, really believable.
A lot of weight.
Yeah,
not that it was a problem that when she was bigger. It was just that she's made a point of training, I think, with Charlotte Flair.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's a believable top tier women's champion. For me, slots straight into that title picture. The matches that you can set up as well in the next few weeks are, I can't. If people are complaining about that, they'll just. I don't think they want to be happy. I don't think they want to enjoy wrestling. You're kind of looking for reasons not to be happy, which, I've been very vocal about it. I've not been the biggest fan of weekly WWE television over the last few years, to be honest, and maybe that factors into the fact that I watch a lot of AEW or watch a lot of wrestling in general. If you have pay-per-view weeks and both WWE and AEW have a pay-per-view, you're clocking up 20 hours of wrestling a week. So if you've got another 5 hours of weekly TV and you don't enjoy it as much, then that may influence the way I feel about it. But
exactly.
I just think you have to kind of give it props when it deserves it. When it pulls out a show like this and everything is so good, I'm surprised that there's a mixed response. I mean, for me, this was a 9 out of 10 Raw. Maybe I'm getting carried away. Would be interesting to see what you think of it, but it didn't do a lot wrong for me.
No, I was going to give it an 8. You're right. I didn't. There wasn't really a lot wrong with it at all. I can't really say it's not a 10, certainly. No. But yeah, for me, I really enjoyed it. I didn't mind Nia Jax.
No, your 10s are kind of reserved for, you have 3 or 4 really good matches. Maybe you have a cash in. Maybe there's a world title match. Yeah. Maybe there's a big tag team championship title change or something. They're few and far between. I don't think I've ever scored AEW a 10 out of 10 either. So, we try and reserve them for the weeks in wrestling or the moments in wrestling that absolutely blow us away. CM Punk's return on that Rampage, that was probably a 10 because of the occasion, the way it was done and everything like that. There's probably other examples, both WWE and AEW over the past few years. But I don't think it was that, but I thought it was a great show.
We're not like Dave Meltzer and give 5-star matches for matches that don't deserve 5 stars. So
no. See, we just try and give our honest time. And this is me talking honestly as a fan of wrestling in general. Probably lean towards the indie side of stuff rather than the sports entertainment stuff as much now at 36. That's not to say people in the 30s and 40s, anything wrong with them if they prefer WWE. No, exactly. But I'm just saying my personal taste. But I thought as a fan of wrestling and have been since the 90s, this was a good episode of Raw, because I've seen some bad episodes of weekly television from both companies or from all companies, and this was not a bad episode of wrestling.
It certainly wasn't, and I must admit, I think my tastes are changing, and I think that's because I go to see Rev Pro a lot more. Yeah,
actually, that's what influences me as well. The indie shows, the stuff that I see.
I'm leaning towards. I'm not saying I don't like WWE. I don't. You need an element of entertainment.
Yeah.
But I much prefer attending those shows because it is just literally match. You do get a bit on the microphone, a bit on the stick where they talk trash. But for me, I could sit there and watch Rev Pro every night and never get bored. So I think my tasting to a degree are changing in what I prefer in wrestling. So perhaps that's why I give AEW sometimes more props than maybe even you do for some shows, because I'm seeing a different side over here in the UK of watching it. But that's the beauty of an opinion, and as long as we're respectful with our opinions and we enjoy wrestling like we do from both sides of the.
And there's a place for all of it and every company based on how much time you have in the week and how much time you want to spend watching TV. And if you're entertained by it, great. You know, if you can only watch certain elements of it and you pick bits and pieces up as you can, then that's great. I think every wrestling fan, I know wrestling fans that don't watch it at all year, but they'll always watch WrestleMania. Or some of they'll always watch the Royal Rumble, and that's enough for them, you know, where they're at, and they've got busy lives and stuff. For me, I watch at least 15 hours of wrestling every single week. You know, so it's difficult sometimes to watch. I'd love to watch Impact every week. I'd love to watch NWA every week, but it's just fitting it in. But when you see good wrestling, no matter what company it is, we should be celebrating that, and we should be giving it its props, and that's what we've done this week for this episode of Monday Night Raw. And the fact that it has had such a mixed response on that poll does surprise me.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me a little bit. Once I'd watched it, I'd done the poll, I'd watched it, I enjoyed it, and then the poll had ended by the time I finished it, and I was like, wow. And then I saw people reading through about everyone slating Nia Jax and with her coming back, and I was just like, geez, well, you can't appease. Some people say, oh, this is too predictable, and then the next thing you know, something unpredictable happens and they crap on it.
Yeah.
you can't win. But anyway, we thought it was a great Monday Night Raw. Dave thought it was a great Raw. I thought it was a great Raw. We're going to take a break for a good few hours. I will be back a bit later on before the Problem Child returns. I'll be sitting down talking NWA with Fiona first, and then the big one later on today. So when I say later on today, this is going up the same day, so I can say it. We have a big interview with Doug Williams a bit later. You're going to have to do that when he's on.
I'll bottle it.
You'll bottle it, yeah. Me, Dave, and Fiona will be back to talk everything wrestling with one of the greatest British wrestlers that have ever lived, Mr. Doug Williams. That'll be on a bit later today. That one will be uploaded Thursday, the 14th of September, although we are interviewing him tonight on the Wednesday. But guys, until we're back a bit later on, enjoy your Wednesday. Dave, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak to you a bit later on, my friend. This has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, and just before I go, I said it at the end of the last show, and I'm going to say it at the end of this show, buckle up 2024. Stay safe. Goodbye.